AFMC is really known.
And also make sure
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of AFMC TV. We're glad you're joining us. November kicks off Diabetes Awareness Month, and kicking us off today is Dr. Chad Rodgers, our Chief Medical Officer here at AFMC, to talk about diabetes awareness. How are you doing, Dr. Chad?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing very good. So I think we had, if memory serves, earlier this summer, you and I had a conversation about an alarming statistic about the childhood obesity, maybe it was childhood diabetes, had doubled since the pandemic. Am I remembering that correctly?
Right. It's kind of both. Okay. So we're kind of talking about, we're now really sort of realizing the whole impact of the pandemic on children and on children's health. And one of the things is we did see a significant weight gain among our kids, our kids and our teens. And what goes along with that increase in weight gain and inactivity and poor nutrition and everything that went along with the pandemic was an increasing rate of type 2 diabetes. Not the kind necessarily that is related to type 1 where you don't produce enough insulin, but the one where because of your weight, your body's not using the insulin as is. Now it appears that sometimes too, type 1 did go up, and they think it may be related sometimes to other viral infections, and COVID may have been one of those viral infections that triggered more type 1 diabetes.
Interesting. When we used to talk about type 2 diabetes, and maybe I'm the only one that thought this, but I kind of associated it more with like an older person's disease. But obviously, if that's not the case now.
Right. Commonly, when we would ask about diabetes and family history, people would report, well, my grandmother had diabetes or my great aunt. But now we're really seeing it in younger children, teenagers, and even very, very young children because of the amount that Americans, how much Americans are overweight.
Yeah. Well, we're just coming off Halloween.
Yeah. Good timing.
Probably not a lot of fruit given out
right.
on Halloween. So, you've got all this sugar. What do parents do, particularly as it relates to young kids? Because this could last forever now for a child, potentially.
Yeah. So when we talk about those things related to diabetes, we talk about health style choices. So things that you do in your life that kind of help promote healthy living, healthy activity. And this is one of them. So this is something that doesn't just begin with the kids in the family, but it begins with the adults. It begins with the whole family. So really trying to kind of establish those, those good habits of eating healthy, especially during the week. Now we all have birthday parties and we all have celebrations and things where we like to go out and get that cake or get that special treat, but really trying to keep things in the home, especially when it comes to snacks, really healthy snacks, because children are growing and they're developing and they need good nutrition. So it's important to have those things available in the house, but parents really kind of need to also model good behavior and making good decision makings, because kids don't automatically just wake up one day and decide, oh, I'm going to eat healthy. Right.
Quite the contrary.
Quite the contrary. So these are some of the things that we can teach our kids to do better. And then there's exercise. So that's the other element, is kind of modeling that behavior of getting active as a family. We all need to put down our phones. We all need to turn off the TV. We all need to get outdoors and enjoy it a little bit.
You make an excellent point here, because we are on the cusp of the holiday season.
Right.
And so we are going to have more pies, more cakes, more sweets and treats and indulgences than what we typically have in the home during the year. I guess moderation still is the main line.
Is a good point. I think the other thing to realize too is the days get shorter, so we're staying indoors. And what do you do in the winter to stay warm? Well, you put on layers of fat. So there's some biological things that happen that kind of lead to that. But portion control, so trying to eat manageable sizes. So when you go to make that Thanksgiving plate, just make one plate. Or just try to pick the things that you know that are going to eat. Try to pick some healthy, but also pick some treats. And knowing, too, that you're going to have dessert, you may want to pull back on some of those sweet potatoes and stuff like that. Things that are, even vegetables can be kind of high in sugar. So you may want to kind of gauge what you're going to eat and just plan ahead. The other thing is sometimes before going to a heavy meal or going to a party is just eating a light meal, like a salad or something, before you go to that event, so you don't arrive to Thanksgiving dinner just starving, because that's when we really tend to overeat.
Kind of prep your system a little bit.
And it's hard not to want to eat the pies and the cakes and the cookies, but really, how many pies do you need? How many cookies do you need? So moderation is really important here.
Let me ask too, when a child or an adult receives a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, is that a forever diagnosis? Can they reverse it? Does it depend on your age?
Right. That's a really great question, because there are things that you can do that are non-medicine, which, it's many times we get a diagnosis, we immediately want to get a pill, or we want to get a shot, or we want sort of some remedy. This is the good old diet and exercise routine, that really making some modifications. But those kids, once they have developed some diabetes, they're going to remain what we say at risk for developing diabetes later on. So they may be a little bit overweight now, and they may be somewhat within, their their blood sugar is somewhat controlled. But as they go on, and the longer they go on, and then if they continue to gain weight and they continue to have those unhealthy lifestyles, their risks for developing diabetes are much higher than the average population.
So they're going to have potentially a lot harder of a time.
Correct.
Than children who aren't diagnosed early. Gestational diabetes.
Right.
Did I read or hear that could be now termed as type 3 diabetes? Is that right? So
you're hearing a lot of discussion within the medical community, but also within just media about type 3 diabetes. So even within type 1 and type 2, and especially among children when they're initially diagnosed, sometimes it's not totally clear whether type 1, type 2. Sometimes those things take time to kind of sort out to see which category they fall in. But now people are beginning to talk about this other third category, type 3, which isn't kind of clearly defined, which some is related to diabetes associated with pregnancy, because there's so much going on during pregnancy. I mean, there is weight gain, but you have a lot of hormonal things going on. You have a lot of changes going on in your body about how you metabolize and use food, because you're trying to develop that baby inside your body. So things kind of change. And many times people have the baby, their blood sugar goes back to normal. Yeah. But then some people go on and continue to have difficulty with their blood sugar.
Interesting.
There is also some talk around type 3 diabetes and its relation to Alzheimer's disease. So you'll see that discussion as well. Again, not clearly defined. People are trying to kind of get some categories that go around all that to better define that, in order to better define the treatment and the long-term outcomes related to those.
We all know that sugar is not our friend, and it's beginning to play out. The longer we live, we're starting to see how much sugar really is not our friend, or high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah. But in our diet in general is just a really high sugar diet. So, and the more, it's kind of like salt. The more sweet you have, the more sweet you want. So again, like you said earlier, moderation is really important. Kind of being really conscious of our sugar use. Some sugar is needed in your diet. You need it for energy. You need it for short-term energy, especially. You need it when your brain is burning. Your brain burns sugar for energy. So in some ways it's important, but again, really kind of keeping control on it, making sure that we're not letting it get out of hand.
Any resources, particularly here at AFMC, that we can point to if people have questions? I mean, obviously they can talk to their physician, but just something quick that we might have.
Right. AFMC has always worked to sort of help educate patients, but also help provide providers with information that they can teach their patients better, to give patients the tools they need to manage their diabetes, because you're not going to get cured in the exam room. You're going to get cured when you go home. So there are resources available through the AFMC website to learn more about diabetes. It's always important to learn about your disease, what you can do to help control your blood sugar, and what you can sort of expect long term. And so some of those materials are available to providers, but also to patients. And many times it's not just about teaching ourselves, but it's about the whole family learning about diabetes. And the American Diabetic Association has some great information about that.
Well, definitely something to be thinking about all the time, but particularly this month too. You know, we are just coming off of Halloween and going into the end of daylight saving time.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, you know, we've had these conversations before just about good old-fashioned sleep hygiene.
Right.
Don't wait till you spring forward or you fall back.
Right.
There are things we should probably be doing year-round.
Right. So sleep is one of those essentials, just like eating. You got to eat, you got to sleep, right? So one thing that we don't tend to do is we don't tend to prioritize sleep.
Yeah.
It's sort of the last thing. So we have a big project due the next day, so we stay up late. We got to get up early because we're trying to fit more into the day. We don't get the amount of time that we need. And many times, sometimes people think, oh, if you get too much sleep, you're lazy. Well, people need varying amounts of sleep.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. The average adult needs about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. But again, it's really prioritizing that sleep. And for young children and adolescents, it's especially important. In teens, It's so important. They're still doing so much brain development that's important. Now, they may sleep a little bit late, start a little bit later and sleep a little bit later than us, but that sleep is just as important to them as well.
What about naps? And I want to address this with both children and adults, but children for sure. What about naps?
Yeah, naps are great. I love naps.
Yes.
I would love to take a nap every day if I could, but sometimes it doesn't lend to it. But naps are really important because it's the time that our brain rests. Our brain is like anything else in the body, like muscles or anything else. It needs to rest as well. And your brain goes through various stages when you're asleep that are very important to help it, how it overall functions and how it stores information and how it gets prepared to learn and do things. So children's brains are developing rapidly. So they're going to need a lot more sleep, especially very young infants. And then we see a peak again, like I said, in adolescence when they're doing a lot of brain development. So those things are very, very sleepy, but they're very important as well. But adults, sleep is just as important for alertness so that we don't mess up on our job, that we don't hurt anybody, that we don't make mistakes. And there's a lot of research related to productivity in sleep. So that kind of post-lunch, 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's a tough time of day.
A 20-minute nap is not a bad idea. Anything longer than that is probably not helpful. Nighttime sleep is the best sleep because you really get into those deep stages of sleep where your brain develops and grows and stores information. So sleep needs to be a priority, just like exercise and just like eating well and all those other things that we do to stay healthy.
Can you make up sleep?
You can try. It's really hard. So you can make up for small amounts of sleep. So if you had to stay up late or you had to get up early 1 or 2 nights in a row, you can sometimes catch up on the weekend. You can kind of regain over the weekend. Again, it's that getting good quality sleep where you get into those deep levels of sleep where the brain does its work to kind of repair itself and to get ready for the next day occur when you have longer periods of sleep. If you just take a short nap or a short period, you're not going to get through all those stages and as often as you need to. So naps are good, but the kind of staying on top of your sleep, getting the adequate amount of sleep during the week is really the priority that you need to have.
It seems like this time of year is everyone's favorite time of year because you get that extra hour versus the spring when we all dread losing that extra hour. So what's a good way to really take full use of that extra hour of sleep?
Right. So this is an opportunity, right? So we all want that extra hour in the day, but it is also the hour that you could work on your sleep habits. We all need to go to bed a little bit earlier and we all need to get up a little bit earlier to be more productive. And many times those sleep schedules get a little bit off. So this is a really good opportunity to listen to those biorhythms. So, normally if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you start getting sleepy at 9 because we fell backwards. It's a good time to kind of start going to bed a little bit earlier and trying to get up a little bit earlier. It takes several days to sort of adapt to a new time change. So anytime especially when you travel, we've all experienced that. Definitely. But just that 1 hour can make a huge difference in the next day or the next couple of days. So doing something incremental, like trying to stepwise your approach by trying to go to bed about 10 to 15 minutes earlier each day, especially with young children when they have to get up for school the next day. This is a good exercise. And this is a really great opportunity for teens because this is one of the number one complaints I get from parents. It's about their teenager going to bed and how late they stay up. So encouraging that teen to go to bed an hour earlier, they're going to get a little bit more sleep. They may not wake up as early, but they're going to get that 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep that they need. And again, they're doing so much brain development. Sleep is really important.
And put the phones down. Put the tablets down. Right. I mean, I've read, I think we've even talked 2 hours, but if you can't do 2 hours, because some people may have just fainted hearing, I can't put my phone, that's putting it down at 7 o'clock at night. Right. But just getting off the devices.
Right. We know that light is sort of that natural thing that kind of helps us with wakefulness. So what do we do when we're looking at the phone? We're looking at light. And when we look at the TV, we're looking at light. And we're a culture that's really gotten into that. So your bedroom, ideally, if it's possible, should be a sanctuary. It is a place where you go to rest and restore and relax. It's not a place to game. It's not a place to watch TV. It's not a place to look at your phone. That should become a safe place where you shut all that off so that your brain can begin to shut down because it allows for the natural production of melatonin and those other things that need to happen in your mind to help you go to sleep to begin to happen. So yes, shutting off the phone, I think hour is good. 2 hours would be great. I know that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot of me.
And if you can't fall asleep, read a book. Don't jump on social thinking that will make you tired. That just starts the cycle all over again.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Dr. Chad, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think the main thing is just, making sleep a priority, that it's just as important as everything else that we do for long-term overall good health.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go take a nap.
Me too.
And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more AFMC TV.